When Distance Becomes Destiny. A story of healing and reunion with God. Let me ask you, in the quiet moments, does love still speaks to you from across the distance? Is there a part of your soul that knows this separation is not the final answer God has for you? Before you close that door forever and convince yourself to start over with someone new, I want you to face this question. Are you truly walking away? Or are you running from a promise God has not yet finished fulfilling? The vows you made in front of God were a seed planted in holy ground. Turning your back does not kill the seed, but it only delays the harvest God intended. Do you truly believe God would abandon His promise? That's not the God we served. Welcome to Kwento Kwento ni Lovely Joyce, but this time with God. 2025 has been a year of brutal endings, of final chapters and heartbreaking goodbyes. But I ask you today, are you looking at a full stop? Or is God just merely turning the pages? And what if this profound pain is not a punishment, but a preparation to prepare you to become more aligned with God's perfect plan? I speak out today to wage war on a lie. The lie that separation is a final defeat. The enemy wants you to stare at that closed door and believe all hope is gone. He thrives in your despair, telling you that love is dead and connection is lost forever. He loves it when you said the hope is gone. But I'm here to tell you that God's power is perfected in what we call the end. He strategically uses the very distance and silence the enemy intended for your destruction as the sacred space for His greatest work. So I must ask you, are you looking at a closed door? Or are you failing to see the new one God is building right beside it? This is not just healing from ending. It's about awakening to a divine new beginning. And this is my favorite part. I love using the lens of God because it's very important that in every situation, we use God's lens for a clearer and better perspective. So, through the lens of God, separation is not demolition. It is a holy reconstruction. He is not rejecting the people, but He is rejecting the broken foundation upon which their love was built. He must tear down the house built on sand so He can rebuild a fortress on the rock of His truth. In this process, love was never wasted. It is just merely placed in the refiner's fire. God melts it down, burns away the insecurity, the pride, and the pain, and recasts it into something pure, resilient, and holy. God's ultimate plan is always restoration. And when His work is complete, He can reunite these two souls, not in their former brokenness, but as living stones in a new temple, anchored completely in Him. Therefore, we must stop crying out, Lord, why does this fall apart? And start declaring with faith, Lord, show me your divine blueprint. Build in me what is eternal and prepare me for the future that you are forging for us. For the longest time, I confused surrender with defeat. I was clinging to my marriage with a white-knuckled grip, terrified that letting go meant letting it die. I was fighting to hold together the broken pieces of our life, and I was failing. Then God gave me clarity, because surrender does not mean that you forget the love, because you can never unlove. It just means you allow God to step in and allow Him to transform that love into something holy and unconditional. He didn't ask me to abandon this love. He can never do that. And so I gave Him my pain, my agenda, my timeline, and in return, He filled my heart with a supernatural, unconditional love. A love that grows stronger in silence. A love that is not dependent on receiving anything back. And this love became my inspiration to preserve myself, to value this covenant, even while completely surrendered to Him. And to my surprise, my understanding of love now became different. It's no longer about what a man can do to make me happy and satisfied, but it's now how a man can walk with me in a sacred love with God at the center, fulfilling our shared calling to be God's witness of faith. With a standard that high, I don't know if my soulmate will be brave enough to walk with me again this time. And honestly, I completely understand. God revealed His promise to me in exchange of my obedience. The key is no longer in my hands. Divine timing is at work, but free will is also at work. And those are the things I have no control. What I can do now is pray for His complete healing, continue my calling to serve in my ministry, and keep persevering in the mission God called me to have, to use my voice in speaking His truth, like what I'm doing now. And mind you, prayer is so powerful. I've known that before, but now I can say that I am a living testimony of how powerful one prayer works, especially when you are so connected to God. My 3 a.m. prayer devotion led me closer to God, so close that every time I pray, I can feel His presence around me, even the presence of His heavenly host. And because of that, many have now doubted my devotion, especially those people who have seen me at my worst. But again, only God and I can testify the authenticity of this connection. So until then, I will keep speaking His truth. I will continue this journey not to prove to anyone, but because I'm holding His answer so clear to me, a promise that now defines my life mission. Son of man, I have made you a watchman for my people, to hear the word I speak and give them warning from me. Ezekiel chapter 3 verse 17. So, question, have you ever felt that God is teaching you that surrender does not mean letting go of love, but letting go of your control, so He can transform that love into His masterpiece? Now this reminds me of this verse, Ephesians chapter 4 verse 15. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of Him who is the head, that is, Christ. This reminds us that God's truth, spoken in love, does not break us. It builds us. It matures us, heals us, and prepares us for the kind of love He truly desires for us. How can we allow His truth and love to be the anchor of our healing and our future relationships? God wants us to see love in separation still exists, but now it shifts from human attachments to divine healing. He wants us to understand that not all messages are calls to return, because some are calls to heal first. Healing is the key, and when both hearts are healed, He may allow that reconciliation to happen. A love reborn in His perfect timing, stronger and anchored in Him. You know, many run away from this process, choosing bitterness or even silence. But God invites us to trust His timeline, because if we choose His way, we will find freedom, peace, maturity. And when both hearts are already aligned in God's perfect time, a newly refined love will grow. And this time, a love that is truly sacred and anchored in God alone. Now, are you ready to let God turn your pain into peace and your story into a testimony of hope? Let's go to the Bible. The Bible shows amazing stories of real people who experienced God's mercy and compassion. Let's dive into them. 1. Joseph and his brothers. After betrayal and years of separation, Joseph declared, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." What seemed like an ending became a path to a reunion, healing and saving of many lives. 2. Jacob and Esau. Two brothers separated by anger and fear finally met again. But instead of revenge, Esau embraced Jacob with forgiveness. What looked impossible was restored by God's healing. 3. Hosea and Gomer. Though Gomer was unfaithful, God told Hosea to love her again, showing us that divine love redeems, heals, and even allows a new chance for love to be rebuilt. So just like them, our separations can become testimonies of hope, and sometimes even pathways to a reunion. But of course, in God's perfect time. So what is God's message for all of us? It's this: separation does not cancel love, and endings do not erase His hope. Sometimes separation is God's way of leading us to healing, clarity, and growth. But when both hearts are healed, when forgiveness flows, and when love is purified, God may allow reunion. This time, stronger, deeper, and anchored in Him. How lovely is that? The love that once broke may be reborn, not in the same old way, but in God's new way, where both are ready to love fully, faithfully, and unconditionally. So, are you ready to trust that if it's God's will, your story may not end in separation, but in reunion, blessed by His hand? So, my dear lovelies, even in separation, God is at work. He turns distance into preparation, and endings into a doorway of new beginnings. Healing is God's gift, but sometimes His greatest miracle is reunion. When both hearts are healed, when both hearts are ready, love may return, not as it was before, but as something new, transformed and anchored in Him. Because if both hearts are healed, God can turn distance into destiny and separation into reunion. This is your lovely Joyce reminding you, our kwento is still being written by God. So keep the faith, keep the hope, and keep walking with God. And who knows, your story of separation may one day become a story of reunion, a testimony of God's faithfulness, His power to restore what was broken, and His perfect timing that makes all things beautiful again. So, until then, God bless you, my lovelies.